Welcome to Spam Filter for Your Brain, bite-sized ponderings on how our thoughts influence our behaviour and our lives, and because we're all connected, how our thoughts impact the world. I'm here to help people reconnect with their bodies and declutter their brains. And I don't believe that we should just magically know how our emotions and our thoughts impact our lives if no one ever teaches us. So let's learn this stuff together. The thing no one wants to hear is you can't manage other people's emotions. Something that's not talked about in a lot of discussions about people pleasing is the idea that most of us respond from a position of people pleasing in the hope that we can try and control what other people think and what other people feel. And so we won't have to deal with their emotions. A lot of the time, things that we classify as people pleasing come from a place of us not being willing to allow other people to have their responses to us not wanting to do things. And we don't want to have to deal with the things that we're going to say to ourselves if someone else doesn't approve or someone else does not agree with our choices. A lot of us go for actions which look a lot like people pleasing to avoid having to deal with our own emotions. And we think that rather than having to deal with any uncomfortable feelings, like shame or embarrassment or guilt, or just general unhappiness, it seems in our brains that it's way easier to try and make other people feel things and think things about us than it is to have to deal with what's going on for us. Which is really wild when it's laid out in front of you like that we think it is easier to manipulate other people's emotions than it is to have to deal with our own feelings. But most of us do this. This is a strategy that most of us have been trying for most of our lives. If we can just get those other people to feel those things, then I won't have to deal with all the uncomfortable emotions that I don't like. And for you, that might show up something like trying to mediate between everyone's needs the whole time, make sure that everybody is all in agreement and that there's never any tension. It might be constantly trying to overstretch yourself and smooth out any of the cracks, make sure that no one's unhappy with you or no one is feeling at all disappointed or like you weren't putting them first. And that obviously leaves you in a place where you're not putting yourself first. And sometimes we actually intentionally want to make other people think that, goodness me, we can't ever put ourselves first. Be an awful thing for someone to think about you. Now, many of us have lots of thoughts about the idea of putting ourselves first, but actually most of the people that I know don't even put themselves on the list, let alone first. They put themselves somewhere towards the back, if not pushed off the back. This is why sometimes we can feel like we're having an overreaction to things, and we find ourselves questioning why we find it so difficult to navigate what's going on, or we just can't stop feeling upset or can't stop feeling so tired. This stock taking is going on in the background. We're racking up all of these examples where we haven't been supported and where we've parked our own needs so that other people can be looked after. And the sad fact of all of this is that you actually can't control what other people think and feel, because what they think and feel is down to their life experiences, their morals, their ethics, genetics, environmental factor, whether they had enough breakfast, a whole load of things that are completely outside of your control. Other people's emotions are generated by electricity going off in their head, and you don't have the power to open them up and generate that electricity for them. They're going to have their thoughts and feelings, and they're allowed to. So what happens when you allow other people to feel disappointed with you? What happens when you allow other people to just have thoughts and just have feelings and not feel like you need to correct them? What happens for most of us is we're then faced with this dreadful situation where we have to deal with our own emotions. And that's something that very few of us were ever taught. And that's why it can seem really scary. And that's why our body is like, absolutely not. I will do anything to try and get away from that notion. But it is possible to learn. And I invite you to just have a little contemplate what it could be like if you stop trying to control what everyone else felt and thought about you the whole time and felt a thought about everybody else and trying to constantly navigate managing everyone else's emotions, expectations, and feelings, and worked out how you can decide what you want to feel about stuff so you can concentrate on the things that are important to you. What would you have more time for in your day? Have you got a hobby that you always wanted to start? Would you get to see your mates more? Would you get to decide to do some meal prep? Might you have more of an early night? All of these things cost you energy that take time out of your limited number of hours that you have in every day. And when we stop trying to control what other people think and feel and just allow them to have their emotional responses, we can bring all of that stuff home to ourselves and go, okay, when I feel like this, do I like it? Do I not like it? How can I try and work out what I might want to be feeling instead? What is me not being willing to feel this feeling costing me? What am I avoiding because I'm not willing to sit in this uncomfortable emotion for a bit? Where am I spending all of this time emptying my energy elsewhere to try and avoid the sensation in my body? And if I were to just sit with it for a minute, how long would it actually last? I promise you it's not actually forever, even though most of us think that it is. Learning to navigate our emotions is such a life skill I wish we all knew, which is why I teach it inside Self-Care School. And I invite you to just think, just have a little daydream about what might be possible if you weren't looking after everyone else at the time. You're allowed to have needs. That's my message of this week. You're allowed to focus on yourself. And I would argue that we all benefit when you do. If this seems like just a pipe dream, I promise it is possible. If you'd like to know how, there's a whole load of resources in the show notes. I'll speak to you next week. If you've been enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, you will love Self-Care School. Self-Care School is longer versions of this, more in-depth and more personalised. We have a whole hub of courses from body image to boundaries, perfectionism, time management, and a whole range of other topics. You name it, there's probably a course on it. But most importantly, we also have a weekly group coaching call where you get to apply this stuff to your everyday life and get support to try and untangle your own story from some of the emotions that you might not be enjoying in your life. If you would like to learn how to apply this work to your specific situation and to be building a life of your dreams, I would love to see you inside. Do pop over to selfcareschool.co.uk.